Yoink! What's up, beautiful people? I feel really called to speak into my breathwork experience from Tuesday just gone as part of Imvictus. So, Tuesday night, it was about golden shadow, identifying the gifts that we've buried, that we've sabotaged ourselves from stepping into and embodying, as well as limiting beliefs. So I guess limiting beliefs ties into self-sabotage, but man, last Tuesday my breathwork journey was out of this body. quite literally out of this body. One of the most scary experiences I've ever had, but also one of the most profound and most healing. So, to begin the breathwork journey, like all breathwork journeys I do, in the start, in the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, my mind's going through a cycle of, oh God, I don't want to fucking breathe like this. Oh God, how long is this going to take before I drop in and, and zone out and get a release or an experience? And it goes from that to, oh shit, where can I get food after this? BP, Wild Bean Cafes, just across the road in Scarborough. I can go and get a peri peri wrap. There's a McDonald's on the way home. I can do that, and I'm going from, oh my God, this is too hard. When am I going to get an experience? When am I going to get a release? To planning my route home based off of what I can eat on the way home. So when I shift out of that, when the monkey mind stops going and I'm, present in the body, my experience on Tuesday, understanding that the intention was to find what we've buried in terms of the golden shadow, in terms of our gifts and our innate abilities as an individual within the collective. As I shift from that place of monkey mind and chatter in the mind and come into the body, I'm just breathing and breathing and breathing. And I think for, 20 minutes to half an hour, I'm like, oh shit, I guess I'm not having an experience. I feel really good. I feel really centered and grounded, but I guess I'm just not having a big cathartic release like I have the last couple of sessions that we've done with Tim. And so I keep breathing, and then, all of a sudden I start getting tetany, and my right hand, as usual, gets a little bit, but this old puppy here starts doing the old twirl, thinking it's a koru, trying to touch me forearm. And, that was quite intense, and so I breathed into that, and slowly, 5 to 10 minutes, that begins to dissipate, and all the while having that intention to uncover those abilities, that golden shadow, I envision or visualize Tim Armand, one of the guys who's in our course, who is this big burly bloke, beautiful man, just super fucking masculine, and someone who through the physical breakthrough just showed up so powerfully and so embodying in his leadership that I visualized him, and I saw myself hugging him in his budgie smugglers. Hugging him in his budgies. I'm in my clothes, don't know why, but okay. Giving him a hug, and I'm crying as I'm hugging him, and what comes up for me is that I've been sabotaging my own leadership. And I'm hugging him and I'm crying because the leadership that he embodies and the way that he shows up in that, how powerfully he shows up in that and in his masculine, is something that I feel deeply called to. But inside I know I'm sabotaging that somehow. Now, the realization around how I'm sabotaging that doesn't come up until a couple of days later, yesterday. But I breathe through that, and then I start breathing a bit more, and I'm thinking about that leadership, and then all of a sudden I see my koro, my granddad, who's passed away. I see him and think about him as the head of the family, and then all of a sudden I'm back in my village, Waihi village, little Waihi, in Tukanu or Turangi, wherever you want to say it is. But I'm back in that village, and all of a sudden I see this ancestor. I'm like, holy shit. I'm looking at him, and he looks like this chief. He just looks masculine. He looks like a warrior. He looks like a warrior who knows the extent of his ability and his capacity, that he can protect without being overprotective, that he can stand his ground, that he can show up embodied in that leadership. And so as I'm looking at him, I begin crying again as I'm breathing. And then I realize I'm crying because I've pushed away that part of me. I've pushed away the Māori culture. I've pushed away my connection to the village, to my family, to my family name. And, in pushing that away, I'm pushing away that part of me that wants to be a leader, that part of me that believes that I am innately meant to be a chief, innately meant to be someone who shows up powerfully and embodied in that leadership. And so, up until that point, beautiful experience. I enjoyed it, and I was like, yes, like even that's just enough. I'm so happy. And then just before Tim says, bring the breathing back to the nose, and we're starting to wind down, just before he says that, my arms just start shaking. And for me, that's odd, because I do tremor release. I do the half an hour, 45 minutes of static movement, static holds to fatigue the psoas, so that my hips, my spine, my nervous system can essentially shake out stress. And when I do that, it really is just the legs that are shaking. So to go into a breathwork session and to never have had my arms shake, and to have them shake to the extent that they were, I was like, oh God, what is this? And so I just kept breathing, and my arms were shaking. And then Tim says, okay, bring the breath back to the nose, and we're starting to wind down. And all of a sudden, this shaking is kicking off. Like, it's my whole body, and my chest and back begin arching, and then the shake becomes one where I'm arching so much and shaking so much that the back of my head is lifting off the ground and hitting the ground. And I get to this point where I back arch and I lose my breath. And I see myself outside of my body, and I have this moment where I freak the hell out, because there's this moment where I'm looking at myself outside of my body, floating, lying in the same position, and I'm really, really struggling to get back to that body. And there's a moment there where I feel like I'm not going to make it back. And holy shit, am I going to die doing breath work? And so thankfully, Tim and some of the other space holders come over. They hold space for me, grab my feet and ground me, and talk me through my breath and coming back to the body. And then, this keeps going for a little bit, and I'm forced to relive in that moment an experience as a 7-year-old at Homai special needs school, going to their pools and nearly drowning in that pool. And then in that moment where I really thought that I was going to die, someone pulled me out of the water. And it was something I'd never thought about, never processed, never spoken to my parents about. And I was forced to relive it through that experience. And so that was pretty scary, pretty overwhelming. And, when I come back to the body and the breathwork had finished for the group, Timmy stayed with me and sat there with me, and we just started talking, and my body was just still shaking as I'm, leant up on one elbow now, and just begins asking me questions, and I start crying. And man, he just gave me a hug, gave me a cuddle, and held space for me and asked me the right questions so that I could get to that point where I'm talking through what it is that I'd been through, so that I understood it, so that the rest of it could flow out. And that flowed out through tears, and it flowed out through just more shaking and more shaking and more shaking. And so what I remember most in that moment, beyond the release itself, beyond the somatic stuff, is laying there propped up on my elbow with Tim giving me a hug, like pulling me into his shoulder while I'm crying, while I'm shaking, is feeling so fucking safe. Like so safe. Safer than I ever felt with a man before. And when I pulled away and he asked me the last question, I remember looking into his eyes. And I remember this feeling that this man, like completely had my back. And in that moment I realized just how much I've kept myself from experiencing that, from being held by a brother to that extent, from allowing friends like fully in, especially since I've betrayed and been betrayed. That was the first moment that I looked into his eyes and I could see he had me. And it was just a beautiful feeling. And then I guess to move on from there, yesterday I had the realization around that leadership piece while doing a video for Imvictus. I had the realization that the way I've been sabotaging my leadership in the past has been, I've been that loudmouth. I've been that person who can't communicate effectively and can't communicate from a place of reason, rationality, from a place of groundedness and truth and alignment. I communicate from a place of reaction and aggression or passive aggression, to the extent where I'm calling out people who are higher up than me, especially in working roles, or finding issues to pick at, finding reasons to cause further issues, until a point where I get demoted or fired, or where the relationship becomes so toxic, largely due to me, that I feel I step into victim mindset and I step away or leave. And so the way I'm sabotaging my leadership now, and my potential to step into and embody leadership, embody that Māori chief that I believe is hiding inside of me, the way I'm sabotaging that now, or keeping that buried, is I've got this belief that I have to be in good shape to be worthy of leadership, that I have to be physically strong, that I have to be a specimen, that I have to be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Tim Armand from Imvictus, that I have to be of that ilk. And I'm using that in conjunction with overeating, with emotional eating, with whenever I get close to getting to a goal weight or a goal physique, sabotaging it by binge eating to the point where I become overweight again. So essentially I'm sabotaging embodying that leadership and becoming who I believe I am through eating, through unconsciously making myself overweight.